the PAG Regional Council meeting and then move on to the RTA meeting. I'm going to request that we start with the special joint meeting today. So I believe we need to do a roll call to be able to start the meeting. So it's a joint roll call, or is it?
Yes.
Or is it PAG first and then RTA? Okay. Alrighty. So let's go to, let me just read the title. Let's see. It is a joint meeting of the Regional Transportation Authority of Pima County, Board of Directors, and the Pima Association of Governments Regional Council, taking place today, Thursday, June 5th, 2025. If we could start with roll call, please.
All right, City of Tucson.
Here.
Town of Oro Valley.
Here.
Tohono O'odham Nation. Pascua Yaqui Tribe.
Here.
Town of Marana.
Here.
Town of Sahuarita.
Here.
City of South Tucson.
Here.
Pima County. Present. Arizona State Transportation Board.
Present.
Thank you so much. And I know that we traditionally do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone can stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all so much. Alrighty, so we move on to item 3, the RTA Board of Directors and PAG Regional Council. Oh, call to the audience. I'm so sorry. I skipped 2. Item 2 is called to the audience.
We do have a speaker today, Madam Chair. Speakers are limited to a 3-minute oral presentation and may submit written comments of any length for the board's files. Call to the audience is limited to 30 minutes. Individual members may respond to criticisms made by those individuals who have addressed the board. However, the board will not discuss or take action on a matter raised during a call to the audience that is not already on the agenda. And caller, thank you for being here today. This is Elise Lawson. You are now going to present to the special joint session. Please start your comment by stating your name for the record. After that, you'll have 3 minutes to address the boards. At the 2-minute mark, I will politely cut in and request that you wrap up your comments. You may now proceed with your comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll start all over again. Okay. So I worked for PAG for 11 years. I retired in April 2023. I wasn't planning on retiring at that time, but the stress of the job was impacting my health, morale was low, and many of my coworkers were departing. I gave the required 2 months' notice. As my retirement date approached, I met with HR to discuss the logistics of my departure. I was presented with a separation agreement called General Release of All Claims Agreement. The basis of this agreement, which was implemented by Mr. Mogimi, is that we agree to the money owed to me by PAG, such as my unused PTO and any reimbursable expenses. I then could not make any further claims of PAG. This agreement contains additional requirements of me if I am to receive the thousands of dollars owed from unused PTO. First of all, I must not tell anyone, excluding my lawyer or tax advisor, about this agreement. It is confidential. I certainly could not tell the regional council about this agreement. Second of all, I am not allowed to criticize PAG or RTA or act in any way that could be seen as harmful to the organization. In other words, I am not allowed to write a letter to the editor that may be critical of PAG or RTA policies. I am not allowed to question any PAG or RTA plans at a public meeting or speak at call to the audience. I am not allowed to submit negative comments at any hearings or comment on any plans when PAG asks for public input, even though I am a resident of this community and no longer employed by PAG. Finally, I'm not allowed to participate on any PAG or RTA committees, even though I may have relevant work experience or education that is pertinent to the work of that committee. I could not serve as a citizen volunteer on EPAC, the CART, the CAC, or the TRP task force. The reason I am able to be here today to discuss this agreement without fear of legal action by Mr. Mohimi is because I did not sign it. I gave up thousands of dollars from accrued PTO so I could retain my First Amendment rights to speak freely about important issues facing this community.
I apologize for the interruption. That's 2 minutes.
I don't know if this agreement is legal. I don't have the resources to pursue a lawsuit, but I do know it is unethical and certainly not the way to treat former employees with years of public experience. I am not aware of any other organizations that require such an agreement at the time of retirement or resignation, or restrict former employees' actions in this manner. I ask that you eliminate this practice after you terminate Mr. Mohimi's employment. Thank you for your time and consideration. I have copies of this agreement. If you would like, I can pass them around. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have no more speakers at this time.
No additional speakers?
That is
All right.
correct.
And then just for the record, we're being distributed the agreement. Thank you. Alrighty, thank you. Alrighty, now we can move on to item 3.
Oh, Chairman, could we respond to that or?
I'm sorry?
Could we respond to that or direct staff or future staff to?
You could give direction for any future action, but we cannot take any action.
I don't mean, direct. Yeah,
Huh?
okay.
Huh?
So I just, I think once we have agreed upon and appointed interim counsel, we should direct this matter to the interim counsel as to whether or not the practice of a non-disclosure is acceptable and lawful, and if not,
Mhm.
what we can do to remedy that in the future.
Yes. Thank you, Supervisor Hines. Alrighty, now we can move on to item 3. Thank you for that. Item 3 is continued discussion and consideration of legal counsel procurement process. The RTA Board of Directors and the PAG Regional Council will review, discuss, and consider the procurement process for retaining legal counsel. They may also discuss the scope of services desired and the terms of a proposed contract, whether for interim and or permanent legal representation. The governing bodies may provide direction to staff regarding the initiative of a process to secure legal representation for both entities. However, considerations regarding the selection of interim or permanent counsel and the awarding of any contracts will need to be properly posted and discussed at a future meeting following the completion of the selection process. So, Supervisor Hines, I know that you had discussed this previously in a meeting in May that I was unable to attend. Would you like to get the floor?
Yes, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Chair. I have, well, one kind of, I've talked to outside counsel with regard to this item, and it is their opinion, unfortunately, that just because this refers to discussion of a process and not a specifically noticed action item, we can certainly discuss this, but it would be likely more consistent with open meeting law if we vote to affirm this appointment or an interim counsel appointment at the beginning of a future meeting. So I just wanted to clarify that that information. I have been in discussion with, since our last attempt at an interim counsel, that he decided not to work with us, unfortunately. I have been reached out to a firm, and a local firm, DeConcini McDonald, and have some biographical information for the two members of that firm who are willing to take on a role as interim counsel as soon as our next meeting, whenever we decide that is. And I can't move that we actually, appoint them now, but I think I've explained as to why. But I'm happy to entertain or hear any other thoughts or suggestions from members of the council and board.
Thank you so much for doing some of that legwork for the board and the regional council. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. And I really appreciate it. I think that, yes, we do need legal representation and we need to act immediately. I understand why, the hesitation to not appoint immediately, because you know, wasn't discussed publicly, but does any other regional council or RTA board member have any other suggestions for interim legal counsel?
Madam Chair, I do have one suggestion, and that individual's name is Pierce Coleman.
Okay.
I didn't speak to Mr. Coleman in advance of this meeting, but I think given our experience from the last meeting, I think it would be good to have a few candidates
Mhm.
for consideration so that if we have the repeat experience of someone declining after learning more about what the interim council responsibilities are, that we have some other options, so we don't find ourselves in this position of having to come back. So
Mhm.
Pierce Coleman.
Pierce Coleman, and Mr. Coleman, does he have do you have a CV for him, or? Because I
don't.
would suggest that he submit one maybe, and we post both Mr. Coleman's and the DeCasini law firm team that is willing to represent us in an interim basis on our packet for the next meeting, so that we can select. We'll be ready to select the next meeting, and I'm,
Madam Chair,
yes,
um,
Mayor.
if we select, we won't have like the payment and things like that. So what I
Right.
was thinking was that maybe the two chairs, once, pick a date a week out, for CVs or whatever it might be, or if anybody else has a suggestion in the interim, submit it, to the chairs, or, if you want to expand it to the chairs and vice chairs. Because I think the difficulty will be, we might approve a CV, but at what rate,
Right.
what is their, background, how long, those types of things.
Right.
So you might want to have more clarity on some of the details, so we can, outside of just the CV, be voting on more of the details of it. So that's just a
And that's
thought
a
or
great point,
suggestion.
because I don't have any of the information from our previous legal counsel. And so I would love to be able to see, I believe I've requested that information a couple of times. I haven't received it, and I'll request it again so that we know what type of contract we had with Mr. Benavides and compare, right?
Right,
Of course, attorneys always have their own rates.
right.
So we might want to ask what's the going rate for these two law firms.
And if I may.
Go
Chair,
ahead, Supervisor.
I didn't do a very good job of explaining why I just passed out those papers. So if I could, this firm and these two individuals, Lisa Smith and Cecily Stamps, already provide legal representation to public entities on a day-to-day matters such as personnel issues, contract disputes, policy matters, nonprofit organization management, which is technically what we are, employment law, public policy, as well as procedural matters such as adhering to open meeting law, all that kind of stuff. So they are local, which I always like to have our funds, staying local as much as possible, and are willing to step in on an interim and or permanent basis if that is something that we want to include them in consideration for that. The other nice thing is they are willing to, and I know we have to obviously talk about contract and things like that, but they're willing to, at the next meeting, when this appointment is made, they're willing to serve as counsel at that time immediately and figure out some of those details later.
And Madam Chair,
yes.
and I have
Go ahead, Mayor.
experience with Pierce Coleman ourselves. So that's why I thought it would be good for at least a couple of people to kind of vet through some of those things, because it sounds like Supervisor Hines folks have some great credentials.
Yeah.
I know Pierce Coleman does, and they cover the same kinds of things: liability, HR, across the board. They have a deep bench. They represent multiple municipalities. I think they're with the pool, the insurance pool for a lot of our cities and towns. That's why I thought it was important to have a small group, at least, to try to vet through some of
Right.
those things, bandwidth, depth, all of those, cost, of course, all those types of things.
Absolutely. Mr. Chair.
He has his hand up.
Mr. Maxwell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And again, my apologies for not being there in person today. I agree that we need to open it for other candidates if they are interested in taking the position. I always get a little concerned when we use the word interim versus maybe special counsel, depending what we are trying to do with this short-term hire versus the long-term hire. I think we need to define those roles. I'll tell you one of the issues with the previous candidate that we had was that as they learned what was going to be immediately expected of them, they didn't figure as an interim they were going to be able to do the correct thing to learn all of our statutes. While all these lawyers we're talking about engaging with are going to know the law, employment law, nonprofit law very well, they're not going to be familiar with our statutes. So I think it's important if we're looking to get a lawyer on base so that we can handle with some of the immediate concerns and issues we're dealing with right now, we might need to find that in a special category. But if we're going to go with a interim, the expectation for them to ever be up with the very specific state statute dealing only with the Pima County Regional Transportation Authority in an interim basis is very difficult. And so I know it's not an easy, there's not an easy answer to it, but I do believe if we're looking to bring in an interim or sometimes special counsel just to deal with current issues that we're dealing with before we can move forward with everything else the voters and the citizens of Pima County need, we may want to consider that. But either way, I would like to see us try to get this done within the week, 2 weeks at most, and I know that's difficult.
Mr. Maxwell, really appreciate it. I was just talking to Mayor Winfield, and we are both willing to get together and, see exactly what we need, what we can do to advance this. Point taken, Mr. Maxwell, I think it would be appropriate for us to be able to talk to the suggested attorney so that we could say, hey, look, there's the statutes for RTA, the different statutes for PAG, and would you feel comfortable with them? So even maybe have a conversation and then try and get a CV from them, and the details about how much they charge and, if they can start immediately with us for the next meeting, because we cannot continue having no legal counsel for these meetings.
Thank you,
So,
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any others, either questions, comments, input on this particular item and the way that we should do it? Mayor Valenzuela,
Madam Chair, I was just wondering,
I think
Yeah,
we need
it's
to,
getting closer to you.
okay.
thank you. I was just wondering if the attorney Kaufman gave a reason of why he declined the position or
I
members of the board.
wasn't here, so I just, this is hearsay for me. So Chairman?
At the direction of the board, we've, myself, Mr. Mogimi, and Vice Chair Mayor Murphy, we contacted Sam Kaufman at the direction of the board. We had about a 1-hour conversation with him. During that conversation, I asked if I could follow that up because I had asked some questions that he deferred because of the composition of the individuals that were on the call. So we exchanged numbers. He gave me, and I called him the next morning, and he told me then that he was going to decline serving as an interim. He did send an email, and so I'll read it. After our call yesterday, and upon reviewing the action items we covered, along with careful review of the February memo from Farhad and Thomas, I've concluded that we do not have the expertise to advise PAG on these matters, including RTA regulations and other related statutory provisions that apply to your region and that are not in our wheelhouse in Maricopa County. I apologize for any delay this may cause, but do believe that PAG will be best, and I think PAG and RTA, PAG will best be served by proceeding to engage counsel for the long term and not on an interim basis. So in my conversation with Mr. Kaufman the following day, he explained that he felt that, and again, I think this is to Mr. Maxwell's point, is that maybe we need to be more specific about the services that we're asking this special counsel or interim counsel, however you want to refer to him, because it was at least of his opinion that that his firm would have to charge a significant rate to kind of get up to speed to be able to offer the a legal counsel to the board. And he felt like as an interim counsel that we would then, by bringing on a permanent counsel, that would be repeated, would be repeating, there'd be these additional costs. So that was his thinking. Yeah, so.
And Madam Chair?
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes, and I think Mayor Winfield did a great job summarizing Mr. Kaufman's concerns, and the increase in what they'd have to charge us for a short-term interim position was to learn all the RTA rules and regulations. So any interim that we put any expectations for them to advise us on the legalities of anything we're dealing with regards directly to RTA statute, they're all going to have to do the same thing. They're all going to have to spend time and money, therefore charge us money to spin the firm up in order to deal with that. So that's why I did bring up the idea of, if we are going to go with an interim or special, we need to be very focused on what we're asking them to do, knowing they may only be with us for a month or two, or we're going to be, it's not a good use of public funds. And I think they're even concerned from a legal perspective. It's not good use of a lawyer to go in and knowingly bill you at that rate for something they're going to do for 2 months.
And to your point, in terms of the time, I don't think it's going to take 2 months, to be honest with you. I think it's going to take a bit more, only because we have to have another conversation about the process that we want to use for a long-term attorney. And then you have that, not sure if we have procurement, and then we go out for a search. Usually searches take 60 days. And so it will take more than 2 months, in my opinion, only because we've gone through searches, and all of us have in our cities, and they usually take 3 or more months. And so we cannot continue being without legal counsel, and that has to happen immediately. So that's why the interim, right? The interim is for immediate action, and the long term, it might be someone different, it might be the same, we don't know, but we do have to open it up and see who can bring the best experience to us.
And Madam Chair,
Okay, there's two, Supervisor Hines and then Mayor.
Thank you. And I think that one key difference we have to remember is that Mr. Kaufman was not a person who was interested in the long-term position. And so I think looking at, again, this local firm or potentially the other, Pierce Coleman, these folks could certainly be candidates to take on that long-term role. And if that makes the most sense and the most cost effective for the taxpayers and for this body, we can do that. But with Mr. Kaufman, there was not really that option. So I think that's a key difference to remember.
Yeah,
Mayor Murphy.
no, to the similar point that Supervisor made and you made, it's probably going to end up being a hybrid, because if we don't, if it's too selective, in my opinion, on a short-term basis, I mean, we're looking at August, right? That we need to potentially come up with a RTA next, plan. So I could literally, see the permanent interim or the permanent attorney could actually not be on board by that time. So I wouldn't want to be too micro on the interim, because they are going to have to advise us, I think, on some RTA PAG issues. Now, they may not have the expectation they want to be forever with us, but to have it, too confined, I think that puts us in trouble. Because I agree with you, we've gone out 2 and 3 times on various searches. So let's just say it took us 4 months to find a permanent, not to have somebody interim that could advise us on these projects and, you know, all the other things that we're dealing with. I think they're going to have to be a little more up to speed and broad. I mean, it will take some money probably. But you know, the RTA next is a $2.4 billion
Yeah.
ask. So I think we want to have somebody that, you know, is at least somewhat competent in that
Mhm.
area.
Absolutely agree. Any others? So we have no motion on the floor. This is just for discussion. As I understand it, we are going to request CVs and any other letter of interest from two law firms, Pierce Coleman, and the DeConcini Law Firm. And then we're going to make sure that at our next meeting, we have the CVs and letter of interest and information. The RTA Chair, Mayor Winfield, and I can gather and review the previous contract with our attorney just to see what we were paying him and what the contract says. So we can make that available as well to the RTA board and the regional council members. Am I missing anything?
Just setting
Mayor
the
Murphy.
sorry, Madam Chair.
Do we have,
A
do we
day.
have, I think we should select a date, but I believe we have a July meeting, July 31st, so we would have to meet before. And I also wonder if it needs to be another joint meeting.
Yes.
Oh, I'd say so.
I think so.
Mhm. Okay, so we can review what are good days. I think we need to meet before July 31st so that we can move on this quickly. We can always send out a poll to see what's a good day for all of us.
Sure. And I would suggest that chairs,
Supervisor?
I don't know how to, okay, that too. That maybe in with regard to what General Maxwell said, I do think getting this done at the latest, 2 weeks time. So maybe looking at June 19th or before to give us not a specific date, but just no later than June 19th and hopefully earlier than that.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Maxwell?
Yeah, the thing that I would add is a lot of these firms, we could ask them if they don't have it. I appreciate that you and Mayor Winfield will review what we were paying, but a lot of them might have standard rates for nonprofit organizations and for different entities. And they may be able to give us an insight into what their fees would be, just so that we have that all. Because if we get to the point where we like a CV, we like what their idea is, and then somebody says, well, we haven't seen what they're going to charge yet, and then we have to, it just delays the process. So anything that we can get prior to that 2 week point, because I agree completely with Supervisor Hines. Getting a legal counsel for us is it's significantly important, because not having it is creating a lot of issues.
Yes, absolutely. Any others? Chair Winfield? Okay. Alrighty, so we will absolutely meet and try and move forward the process. And then, of course, there's a request that we have this before June 19th, Supervisor, I think you said. Okay, and then we'll try and do a doodle poll on what dates are best for all the colleagues to have a continuation. Thank you. So that was item 3. Item 4, discussion direction action on executive director's current employment contract, consideration of appointment of interim executive director as requested during the May 22nd, 2025 joint RTA PAG Board of Directors meeting. Supervisor?
Thank you. I actually have 2 motions. I'll list the first motion and we can discuss and vote on it. But then I also would like to make a second motion related to this item, if that's possible. Okay, so firstly, I would move that we terminate the contract for the executive director effective immediately pursuant to Section 6 of the employment agreement we have.
There is a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Mayor Murphy.
Well, based on our previous conversation that we just had, and talking about how important it is to have legal representation. At this time, I'd be voting no on that, only because of the fact that when you're dealing with HR issues, whether it's continued to whatever that date is, the 19th or 20, and you could add that to some of that discussion, but not having potentially, not having legal representation when we're taking on such a heavy issue, such as this, I think opens us up potentially for liability. It doesn't seem like we're going to continue anyways until we get legal representation. So I just wanted to clarify my vote, that I'll be voting no, just because of the legal representation at this time.
Madam Chair?
Chair Winfield.
Thanks. I'll be voting no as well. Of course, as we all know, our legal counsel resigned approximately 6 weeks ago. We've not secured permanent legal representation, and in my view, and I think it's pretty clear that that's our first priority. And so I'm grateful that we've had this discussion as a board previous and then again today. So I think we certainly are making a valiant effort to make that happen. I think that's important before we take any action, either to retain or remove the executive director. And I'd like to cite some similar reasons that Mayor Murphy. First, to mitigate legal risk. I believe any action we take, particularly one as significant as removing an executive director, must be legally sound. Without legal counsel, we're exposed to potential claims of wrongful termination, breach of contract, or procedural error. Second, I believe we each have an obligation to preserve the integrity of the process. Legal guidance ensures our actions align with RTA bylaws, employment law, principles of due process. That's not just a legal necessity, it's a responsibility that I feel we owe to the executive director, the public, and to each other. Third, to maintain stability and public trust. Acting with deliberation demonstrates that we're making decisions for the long-term health of the organization, not in haste or out of political expediency. Legal counsel can help shape a proper separation process, if that's the decision. Advise on interim leadership. That could be future legal counsel, ensure the organization continues to function effectively during a change in leadership. That said, I recognize and respect that there are differing views on this board and that some members may feel urgency due to concerns about leadership performance or direction. I'm not dismissing those concerns, but I believe that delaying action until we have legal counsel is not an effort to avoid a decision. It's an effort to make the right decision and to do it in the right way. And for those reasons, I think obtaining legal counsel is really critical. And so I'll be voting no.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Maxwell.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you for ceding the floor. I too am concerned about the legal counsel advice, but I've got some other concerns. And one of them is the expediency that the citizens of Pima County deserve. We've been dealing and grappling with this issue for quite a while, trying to handle it, and they deserve us to keep trying to move forward as we've got some important decisions regarding both PAG and RTA in the near future. But I also feel very strong that when we're dealing with executive management, we should always take a professional approach. And for these reasons, and in the spirit of due process, I'm going to offer a substitute motion. My substitute motion reads that the board requests or offers the executive director to submit an offer for us to accept his resignation, and also to immediately place the executive director on 2 weeks of paid administrative leave to consider this offer.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion on the table?
I have a question. So
Chair.
So General Maxwell, is the intent of the 2-week administrative leave, is that to give the board the opportunity to, if the executive director makes the decision to submit a resignation, is that for us to review that resignation? Can you just elaborate a little bit on what?
Yeah, if in accordance with the contract, we are allowed to offer to accept his resignation should he make one. By placing the executive director on 2 weeks of paid administrative leave to consider this offer, he can, one, make a decision of whether he wants to give an unconditional resignation or another offer to that resignation. It also gives us an opportunity with the June 19th due date to set ourselves closer to legal counsel. So I'm very concerned with the current first motion on the table without having access to legal counsel. I know each of you has your legal counsel in your professional role. I rely on the legal counsel of the board, and at this time, we don't have one. So before we take that kind of measure, I really think the better option is for us to open an offer to the executive director to accept his resignation and then put him on 2 weeks of paid leave for his consideration of that offer.
Mayor Murphy, and then I'll go to Supervisor Hines.
And General Maxwell, is that also open up the time frame if the executive director, wants to offer, well, I would maybe do that if these conditions were met? Is that part of that 2 weeks to allow for that opportunity?
And Madam Chair, Mayor Murphy, if we had a legal counsel, we'd be able to find out if that's a possibility. The contract specifically says if he submits his resignation unconditionally, it's effective immediately upon that submittal. But I do not believe, and I'm not a lawyer, that if anything would prevent him from submitting a resignation with other than unconditional.
Thanks.
But-
And Madam Chair? And then, sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes, go
Oh,
ahead, Murphy.
So your anticipation would be to allow that to happen once the attorney came on board? If it,
Madam Chair, Mayor Murphy, honestly, the anticipation would be we'd need to have a legal counsel tell us if that's an acceptable form. I do believe that would open up the opportunity for the conversation of a resignation. But again, I'm a member of the board and I'd love to have legal counsel right now that could tell us if accepting that. If according to the contract, if he was to unconditionally submit his resignation, the termination date would be immediate and he'd be entitled to all severance as outlined in his contract.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hines.
Thank you. I do have a copy of the contract, and I was, well, for the purpose of clarifying section 6, which I referred to in the original motion, section 6, termination A. For the purposes of this agreement, termination shall occur when, 1, the majority of the regional council votes to terminate the employee at a duly authorized public meeting. There is no mention of legal counsel. We are at a duly noticed public meeting of this body, a joint one, in fact, which is not actually necessary. But what also the section 7 discusses the separation, and any resignation forfeits severance, any. So I don't think that makes much sense to do that. And I would therefore respectfully, General, would oppose your substitute motion.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Mr. Maxwell.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Supervisor Hines, I understand that interpretation, reading it a couple of different times. I think that's not as clear, both the termination via the majority vote, which is absolutely correct. That is the first opportunity. But as a layman read it, he'd be eligible for the severance either way, whether he unconditionally resigned or if he voluntarily submits, that's when things change. So that's like you said, that isn't section 7. I'm purely talking the comments in section 6 or 5, whichever one has what you first outlined.
Maxwell, I will not be accepting or voting. I will be voting against your substitute motion. I believe that it is for the good of the public that we move forward in both PAG and RTA. You all have witnessed, as well as the public, the concerns that I have had with this particular executive director. And there's timelines that we have to work on. And unfortunately, I have lost all confidence that Mr. Mogimi will help us move along the work that the public deserves. So any other comments, any other,
Madam Chair, just one last comment.
Mayor Murphy?
I just, back to the Mayor Winfield and the general's point about legal representation. I'll be voting, no on the original one, yes on this one, because whether it opens up the organization to liability or us personally for liability under wrongful termination, I just think, it's been going on for a while, so a couple more weeks, I think would protect us most importantly, both organizationally wise and personally. That's.
Chair Winfield?
Thank you. I appreciate the substitute motion. Unfortunately, I'm going to vote no on both of these motions for the reason I've stated. We don't have legal counsel. This is significant action. I believe it puts the board at significant risk. Again, I'm acknowledging that members of the board have their differences. I think that it would be prudent to obtain legal counsel, whether that's interim or permanent, and then go forward with this decision. I see no compelling reason and I simply am not going to take that risk. I'm going to try to distance myself as much as possible from it. But I'll be voting no on both of these motions.
Chairman Jose? Chairman Jose?
Well, just want to apologize for my delay. I was in a federal consultation, which was talking about all the other things that are facing this country. But all I would like to say, Verlin Jose here, Chairman of Tohono Nation, in participating with this regional council, I believe that we have a role to play here. I believe that each and every one of us sitting here are the heads of a jurisdiction that the people entrusted us to be heads of. I believe that we bring to this table, we bring to this organization the qualities, the knowledge, or the lack thereof to this table. I do not have a degree. I'm not an attorney. Just a simple man here. And what I do bring to this table is that, and I'll tell you truthfully and honestly, I have no personal issues with any one of you in this room yet. That's not my person. But what I do want to say is that I believe that sitting here gives me a role that I have to play to represent the people. And it does concern me about some of the most recent incidents that have taken place by merely not following what this council says, or maybe it's a minor oversight or something, but we're dealing with issues on behalf of the people. Do we need legal counsel to tell us? I think legal counsel, there's a person that's a lot wiser than me that I served as the vice chairman under. And he made a comment one time. He said, the attorneys are here to advise us, to give us legal advice. They're here to, from whatever issue that we're dealing with, in accordance with the law. The legal counsels do not make decisions for us. We make decisions. The leaders, the people elected to provide leadership to them. And I sit here, nobody wants to be dealing with these things. I mean, over the last few months, we've been dealing with some really heavy things here because of the organizational structure or the lack thereof with the two councils that we have here. And it's concerning. It's concerning because, and I say this with utmost respect, it appears that we were operating in a dysfunctional form of council, that we weren't in agreement with each other, and we're all pretty adamant about our role here and we want to do something, but it really is disheartening because we shouldn't be having these discussions like this when there's so many issues that are facing our county, that are facing our people, that we shouldn't even be having these discussions. But it's unfortunate, and we're here at this point for a reason, because there are concerned individuals, there are concerned board of directors here because of issues that affect the people that we represent collectively as a regional council. So if we're saying that we need legal counsel here, can somebody show me where it says that every action of this council cannot be taken unless they have legal counsel? Some of you do have legal counsel that assist you. I don't. I think we got, well, first of all, I think we got too many attorneys that work for us, but I didn't say that. I'm coming here with just my basic human common sense on looking at this. And I think without an attorney, sometimes we just prolong it, but yet we're sitting here on this council with responsibilities for the reason that we're here. Now, we continue to push it off until we get legal counsel. It's going to prolong that when we got business that we need to do. As long as we're doing it within the legal confines of the law, I don't think we're doing anything wrong. I think we're doing what we need to do in the best interest of the people we represent on this regional council. So I just wanted to say that because it is concerning to me that I think we prolonging this long enough. We got business to do. We all got, on the side of this, we got cities to run, governments to run. And I sat this morning for 4 hours waiting to provide my statement to the federal government because that's what the people elected me to do. I sat on the side of the road to do whatever because my commitment was to get here, but I have a commitment to serve my people to the federal government. And I'm going to do what I need to do within all the legal, ethical, and respectable actions that I need to do. I think we need to move forward. I mean, one, in my administration, is one of our mission is to build that trust. I think that trust has been fractured here. I think we've been lied to, but according to the information I've seen and received, and that we've heard here in this meeting, there was no truthfulness. Are we supposed to continue to operate in that manner? So for all those intended reasons and statements, I believe we just need to move forward. And if we do something wrong, I think that we're all experienced and educated enough that if we were to be violating any law, that we probably wouldn't be going down this road. But we're trying to move along because we got work to do here. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any others? If not, we're going to go to roll call. Alrighty, so we are going to vote on the substitute motion made by Mr. Maxwell. Let's go to roll call. Can someone help us? And this is on the substitute motion.
Okay, for the substitute motion, City of Tucson,
No.
Town of Oro Valley,
No.
Tohono O'odham Nation,
Against.
Pascua Yaqui Tribe, Town of Marana,
Aye.
Town of Sahuarita,
No.
City of South Tucson,
No.
Pima County,
No.
Arizona State Transportation Board.
Aye.
Motion fails. Let me see, by 3?
By 3.
Right.
3-6.
3-6. Thank you for keeping me on track there. And now to the original motion. This was done by Supervisor Hines. Can we go to roll call?
City of Tucson,
Aye.
Town of Oro Valley,
No.
Tohono O'odham Nation,
Four.
Pascua Yaqui Tribe,
4, yes.
Town of Marana,
No.
Town of Sahuarita,
No.
City of South Tucson,
Yes.
Pima County,
Yes.
Arizona State Transportation Board.
No.
And then just for clarity, Chairman Jose, was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And then Chairman Hernandez, was that a yes?
That's a yes.
Okay. So motion passes by a vote of
5-4.
5-4. Okay. I know Supervisor Hines, you had an additional
Yeah, yes.
direction?
I had a second motion pertaining to the second portion of this particular item with regard to appointment of interim executive director at a subsequent meeting, at the same meeting that we are going to work on a date for. I move that we appoint a working group to bring together a list of qualified local individuals. And that working group consists of yourself, the chair of PAG, the chair of RTA, the state, so General Maxwell, and myself representing the Pima County, the 4 of us, to generate a list that can then be reviewed by the entire body at the subsequent meeting in a personnel executive session following the appointment of interim counsel, so that we can select someone from that list.
And you're doing that in the form of a motion?
Is in the form of a motion. Thank you.
Alrighty, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. I was just about to ask Chair Winfield if you're being volunteered. So I wanted to make sure if you felt comfortable with that. Mr. Maxwell, you feel comfortable with that as well?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none. I don't know if we should go to roll call or just a voice vote. Chair Winfield says voice vote. So all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any against? Motion carries. I know in terms of the structure of PAG RTA, there is in deputy director. The deputy director then should assume responsibilities as we work to make sure that we get legal counsel and of course, I traditionally see Jackie here taking notes and helping us with that. I don't know if that will continue to be the case. But the infrastructure of both a PAG and RTA in terms of personnel and employees are still there. And under rules of the PAG, when the deputy executive director is not here, then the deputy director should take the reign of the organization. So with that, I will,
Chair, one quick thing.
yes.
Chairs, would it be prudent for us to specify in this open session the upcoming agenda, just so staff can have clarity about what will that need to be? Okay. I think our first item of business should be to appoint interim counsel, as we discussed the need for that. The second item should be to convene a personnel executive session with that council present to interview the candidates brought forward by the working group that we just approved, to appoint, to interview interim executive director candidates. And then following that, in open session, once that is concluded, the appointment of an interim executive director should be at least 3 things that we have on our agenda for the next meeting on or before June 19th, as we discussed.
Madam Chair, could I just add?
Yes, Mayor Murphy.
One additional item, because both for the attorney, we have the interim plus we have the permanent, and we've only had a discussion on the interim executive director. So it's, I would ask to
Yeah,
be
that-
included to put a process together, or maybe that's the interim director, to put a process together to select a permanent one. So I just didn't want that to be
To add
forgotten.
that.
Yes.
Okay, so that we can have a discussion. And I assume Supervisor Hines that we'll requesting a joint meeting as well of the PAG RTA?
Yes, that would make the most sense, I believe. Yes.
Alrighty. Okay, Chairman Jose.
Madam Chair?
Chairman Jose and then Mr. Maxwell.
Madam Chair, Board Directors, so the working group will make sure that they take care of all the background work that needs to be done to bring back to this board here. So, I mean, we're mentioning things, there might be a few other things that you might need to work on that may not be stated, but I hope that it's the understanding of this board that that work group was selected and approved to do whatever it needs to do to get us to the next step in getting legal counsel. So I just wanted to make mention of that, because sometimes we say all these things, but there might be a thing or two that we might have forgot. But knowing that it's within the endeavor of bringing on a legal counsel, that you can say, well, you didn't say that at the meeting you were going to do that. But so I'm just saying that that's my understanding, that this group is going to do and prepare whatever is necessary so that we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other comments, questions?
I think
Mr.
Maxwell.
Oh, Mr. Maxwell, I'm so sorry.
And then if I could
Go
take-
ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, apologize for not being there. This is uncomfortable, but I do have a question so what's the process for the rest of this meeting? What's the process? And we just took a very significant vote that's changing the leadership of both PAG and the regional council. And I'm just unsure for the staff. I'm sure there's a lot of people that has questions. Do we have a definition of what the process from this point moving forward is? Like, do we continue with our RTA meeting? Do we continue with the PAG meeting? I guess I'm at this point kind of wondering what the next steps are.
Yeah, go ahead. I do have one thing I'd like to say before we adjourn.
Mayor, I was just talking with Mayor Winfield, Mr. Maxwell. I agree. I believe that we should adjourn and not continue with a PAG RTA meeting. I do have a question in terms of what has to absolutely be approved at this meeting. I know that we have the OWP that is under some timeline, and I believe it needs to be approved today. So I would suggest that we just do one item on, I believe is on the PAG agenda. So that's what I would suggest, but we would have to, I would love to hear what you all would have to say. We don't have legal counsel, so I don't think we should proceed with the rest of the agenda unless it's absolutely necessary.
Chair.
and Supervisor Hines.
Thank you. Two things. One, to respond to the chairman and his comments. The working group will do everything they need to do. And one of the things, for example, is once candidates are identified, they have to be given 24 hours notice. They have to consent to be willing to appear either in open session or most likely in executive session, but they get that option and that has to be offered to them. So that will be something that the working group will take care of. As to the OWP approval, I think we have until July 1st to do that. I think given the leadership change, it would make the most sense since we're definitely going to have another meeting before July 1 to allow for future leadership to review that and help us with that. So I think we don't actually have to vote on that today since we will definitely be having additional meetings in June.
Thank you so much. Is that correct information? Yes, please approach.
Madam Chair, members of the council and board, my name is Dan Gabbio. I'm the newly chief of staff as of this past Monday here representing Dave Atler, the deputy director who is absent today. Staff here is ready to present on whatever items you are ready to hear. I might suggest perhaps a 15-minute recess if that would be appropriate so we could discuss at your pleasure.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a
Yes,
qualifying
Mayor
question? To the mayor's point, is as far as you know, unless you need a break to find out, is there anything that has to be proceeded upon today? Or to the supervisor's point, is there, if it's June, just say June 19th, that was our latter date, can there be something added to that meeting that requires action?
There are several items that are critical as far as the time frame that we would like to discuss today if the council and board would be willing to hear.
I would be totally open to giving us a 15-minute adjournment or a 15-minute break so that you all can regroup and we can have look at the dates as to when things have to be, especially the OWP, and when that has to move. Because I do like the idea of continuing it for next meeting, but I would also want to hear what your timelines look like and what has to be in by what time.
Thank you.
So, absolutely. Any others? Any questions?
Madam Chair, I'd like
Mr. Chair,
I'd like a minute before we adjourn for
Yes.
15 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. Any others? Mayor Winfield.
I'd like to publicly express, at least for the town of Oro Valley, and recognize the professionalism and services of Mr. Mogimi for the past 13 years with the Pima Association of Governments and Regional Transportation Authority. Those of us around the table, Mr. Mogimi has the longest standing institutional memory of the RTA. He wasn't with it from the exception, but at least for the past 13 years. And so he's intimately knowledgeable about this program. And of course, we're going to lose that expertise as we come to the sunset of RTA 1. I want to acknowledge his understanding of legal requirements of project delivery, his knowledge and understanding of the legal requirements and restrictions of the various funding sources, his responsiveness to requests for information. And for years, he's juggled the interest of these 9 jurisdictions vying for the same funds. So on behalf of the town of Oro Valley, thank you for your service. Thank you for your support to our community. We've certainly benefited from PAG, RTA, and so thank you for your service.
Madam Chair?
Mayor.
Obviously, I was part of one of the training grounds for you before coming here. I'm the longest serving member still on this board. And as always, Mayor Winfield came more prepared than I did. I didn't realize we were going to be here at this point. So on behalf of the town of Sahuarita, not only did you help us at the town of Sahuarita for our early RTA projects, but continuing to go along. So I thank you for your service.
All righty, any others?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Maxwell.
Yeah, I'm just going to repeat the question I asked earlier, and I know maybe we haven't thought through the process, but I think it's extremely important from both for the executive director, for the staff, and for others to understand what the separation process is going to look like. So I think during the break, when we come back into PAG, if it's the appropriate time to talk about it, we've got to have an understanding of the next steps, both for staff and for the exec director and for us. I do agree 13 years it was worthy length of service, and I thank Mr. Mogimi for that service. But I think it's very critical that we know now that we've taken this action, what the immediate steps are, and very difficult to do without any legal advice at this time.
Mr. Maxwell, the PAG agenda does not have an item to discuss this listed. The only agenda item that we can discuss this under is basically this one. This discussion, direction, and action. So do you have any thoughts in terms of how to proceed? Because it seems as though Supervisor Hines described and we approved an item describing the process of where we go next. I think that maybe finding a date that we can sit down, the work group that was created so that we can proceed, communicate and proceed with the next agenda.
Madam Chair, I fully agree. It's not the concern of what we do as far as the next process for finding our executive director, interim executive director or anything. I think Supervisor Hines did an outstanding job outlining it. I'm talking the immediate issues and how it's going to play out tomorrow. So that's my concern right now. And again, sorry for not being there. If not, we could discuss this further there, but right now I do not, and I don't know if the staff understands what tomorrow will look like. And I think that's an important thing for them to know.
As I repeated, Mr. Maxwell, there is a deputy director that must assume duties of the executive director, and that's why we have deputy directors. And if you'd like, we can, the same working group can put in a call to make sure that Mr. Adler is going to be able to take control and reins of the organization.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any others? All righty. Thank you so much. We will, item 5 is adjournment. Oh, anyone? Chairman Jose? I'm missing people today. I'm so
All
sorry.
right, Madam Chair and Honorable Board of Directors, if there were any other items to discuss regarding this action, it probably should happen now. I mean, we were getting ready to move on, but I just wanted to say that because other than that, operations should continue to operate status quo. I mean, everything should keep moving forward because of that deputy director and so forth in terms of next steps. I was going to mention that the working group would then need to play a little bit more active role in terms of making sure that we're moving to get prepared for our next steps, and that the deputy director can obviously reach out to the chairs if they need any guidance or anything like that. Not to the council, but to the chairs.
Yes.
So we don't violate any open meeting laws or anything like that. So the direction from staff or anyone should still be there to the chairs of both councils. At least that's my understanding, and I'm not an attorney, but that's best practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Jose, and I'm so sorry I missed you before. I do see Mike Collety's hand up. Mike, did you want to include? Did you put your hand up or?
He's on virtual, so we don't.
But don't you see the little hand?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's nodding his head no, I think.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was a mistake. Okay. Let's,
15. Adjourn and take a
wait,
15-minute break.
he's saying no? I mean, okay.
He's with Kimley Horn.
I know, okay. Alrighty, so item 5 is adjournment.
So I
We're
did want to
going
quickly ask,
I'm sorry?
if the item on the PAG regional council for
Okay, one more.
item 10 can be determined quickly.
I'm sorry,
that it's
Mr. Colity, you
not
are breaking
needed
up
since there's no-
severely. And so,
Madam Chair,
Mr. Maxwell.
I think what he's trying to find out is if his item, he's here to present an item, I believe, on the PAG Regional Council agenda. I may have heard item 10, but he just wants to know if his item still needs to be briefed today.
We'll let him know in 15 minutes.
Yeah, we will let him know in 15 minutes. But we're going to adjourn, give the staff 15 minutes, and I'm pretty sure that he can connect with staff as well. Thank you. Already adjournment. Thank you all.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we are all back. I think we are all back and we will commence our Pima Association of Governments meeting. So item 1 is called to order. And do we need to do a roll call?
Appears that everyone is still present.
Mhm. Okay, so for the record, everyone of the council members are present and we do have a quorum,
Wait, no, actually, sorry.
correct? Okay,
General Maxwell's on the, yes.
and General Maxwell's online, that's why. We're missing someone in person, but General Maxwell's online. Item 2 is Pledge of Allegiance and colleagues, what we're going to do is we're going to have one item that we must hear and we have to approve. That's item 6. There's also call to the audience, but I'm just explaining what's going to happen. And so we're going to hear item 6 of the Pima Association of Governments meeting and delay further action on other items. And so we'll do, of course, we just did call to order. We're going to do the pledge and then we're going to move directly to item 6. And then we will adjourn this meeting and commence the RTA meeting. And Chair Winfield has a shorter agenda as well that he'll announce when we start the RTA meeting. So with that, Supervisor Hines?
Clarification, is it like super unpatriotic to suggest we've already done the pledge? We don't need to
It's
do,
not.
we
It's
don't
not.
need to maybe
It's
do the
not.
pledge 2 more times.
Have
I'm
done the pledge
proud
of allegiance
American.
for our joint meeting.
Yes.
We could skip that if you all desire. So we can move to item 3, which is call to the audience. Adam Ledford, please lead us on the call to the audience.
Madam Chair, there are no speakers at this time.
Righty, so we have no speakers. We move on to item 6, and this is the item that I have been told we definitely must hear today and actually vote on it. But we can always return to this item and amend. So item 6 is grant agreement between the Arizona Department of Transportation and Pima Association of Governments for the fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027 overall work program. PAG staff will provide an overview of the development process and final draft of PAG's overall work program for fiscal years 26-27 as approved by PAG's federal and state funding partners. Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. Good afternoon. My name is Adam Ledford, and I serve as the Program and Policy Coordinator for PAG. I appreciate the opportunity to provide an overview of PAG's draft fiscal 26 and fiscal 27 overall work program. For context, PAG is required to produce a biennial scope of work known internally as the Overall Work Program, or OWP. The OWP consists of transportation planning programs for the region, as well as PAG's other programs and their respective goals. The OWP must be approved by ADOT and is in effect for 24 months beginning on July 1st. Per federal regulations in Title 23, the OWP must include a discussion of PAG's planning priorities and proposed work for the next 2-year period by major activity and task, the organization designated to perform the work, the schedule for completing the work, the resulting products, the proposed funding by activity or task, and a summary of total amounts and sources of federal and matching funds. The proposed work must include the federally required activities of PAG as the federally designated metropolitan planning organization. The required activities include development of the long-range regional transportation plan, as well as the short-range transportation improvement program, along with the required components of these, such as travel demand modeling, air quality conformity, Title VI analysis, and performance reporting. To ensure that the draft work program will include federally required activities, a review was conducted by ADOT, FHWA, and FTA. Based on that review, we're pleased to report that the comments indicate that PAG's OWP is in compliance with federal requirements. In terms of the organization of the document, it begins with an introduction along with a section on regional planning, background, and overview. Then the document is organized into general categories like transportation activities or RTA support that contain separate sections dedicated to each of the 15 work elements. For each work element, the sections include a description of the goals, a table with anticipated products and anticipated completion dates, strategies to achieve the outcomes, and funding sources. The appendices include the required functional organizational chart, accomplishments and highlights from fiscal 24 and 25, and revenue and expenditure tables. For the revenue and expenditure section, there are 6 tables. Table 1 is funds available. This table shows carryover as well as anticipated revenues by fund source, with federal sources at the top, followed by state and local sources as you move down the table. Table 2 is the local share revenue. This table lists the PAG member agencies and their local share contributions to PAG. No change from the previous OWP are proposed for these contributions. Table number 3 is total revenue by program area. This table lists the work elements by row and the funding sources in the columns to total both by program area as well as by fund source. Table 4 are the total expenditures by program area and category. Table 5 is staff allocation by program area. This lists the full-time equivalent values by work element. And Table 6 is capital and equipment and consultants, including pass-through funding. This table provides a detailed listing by work element and fund source of these items that are 5,000 or more. This is an action item, and for clarity, there are 2 documents that we're asking for a motion today. We're asking for the Regional Council to both approve the fiscal 26 and 27 OWP and to authorize the Executive Director to execute the grant agreement between PAG and ADOT and any other agreements with funding partners in accordance with the adopted OWP. At this time, I'd like to ask Jamie Brown to join us at the lectern, and we'll be both happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks to you all.
Mr. Brown, go ahead. Did you have a presentation or?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council. I'm just here to help with questions.
What's the will of the council? Mayor Winfield?
Thank you. Mr. Ledford, you mentioned in your, of the 2 items that are needing action, that for the executive director to negotiate these grants in lieu of the fact that the executive director's was dismissed earlier, who will be doing that?
No, thank you. Sorry, we're all, I think, reacting in real time here. Can I suggest that we add the word acting executive director to the motion?
Or the deputy director?
Or deputy director.
Madam Chair, I don't know.
Mayor Murphy?
Jamie.
And then after Mayor Murphy is Supervisor Hines.
Oh, unless he was first, that's fine. Was Supervisor Hines first?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
And then Supervisor Hines.
I just didn't know, I know a lot of times that to Mayor Winfield's point, is there anything officially that has to be done for who can sign or not sign? Is there a federal designation that would have had to be submitted, that has to be submitted to have the deputy director sign this particular document? I know at the federal level, there's certain things that have to be done correctly or be on file or so, whatever it might be, but.
Well, since we're starting a party here, we'll ask Dan Gabbio to come up as well.
I believe, as Madam Chair pointed out, the deputy director will serve per the bylaws in the absence of the executive director. So David Atler should have full authority to sign off on these documents.
Okay, thanks. That was my question. Appreciate it.
Supervisor Hines?
Thank you. My understanding is that, again, this has to be submitted to ADOT and for their approval to 24 months. I heard all that, but this is a July 1st thing. I just think that whoever comes on as our interim executive director should really be able to kind of review this and get their fingerprints on that. I really think we can move, we don't have to vote on this right now today. And also, if we can't get things done by July 1st, I believe there's a process for requesting an extension from ADOT as well. And I wanted to hear from staff if anyone can speak about that specifically to give us more information.
Thank you for the question. Per our agreement, there was a May 22nd deadline that we've already passed in which we should have submitted these documents. If we delay this further, there's a high risk that our staff will not be able to be reimbursed for any activities that we do starting July 1st until these are signed and submitted to ADOT. And that may cause further delays anyways. That still needs to be signed by ADOT and reviewed by their staff. So delaying this could present some significant challenges there. And if I may continue, these documents have been in existence for years and years going back. They've been updated with minor changes each 2-year cycle. Used to be a 1-year cycle back in the day. They have been reviewed by staff. Back when I was on the other side with Federal Highway Administration, I had reviewed the documents as the Federal Highways representative as part of the work plan review and had already given the Federal Highways okay on this along with ADOT staff. The work plan reviews consist of multiple ADOT staff as well as Federal Highways to look for compliance with all activities presented therein.
Dave has reviewed.
And Dave has reviewed it as well.
Supervisor?
Just two, I guess, kind of follow-ups. If so it's June 19th too late then for ADOT to be able to receive this, because that would still be significantly before July 1st.
That would be nearly a month past the required deadline, and as I mentioned, would put us at significant risk of not being able to move forward with activities beginning July 1st.
Supervisor, if I may, I recognize the concern that you have. The last time that the OWP was presented to the PAG Regional Council, there were significant discussions and concerns coming from me on behalf of the city of Tucson. And I know that Supervisor Scott also brought up a lot of concerns. The two issues of concern at that time were the lack of involvement from lower committees, and then also the lack of transparency regarding how our carbon reduction program funds were being spent. And so there's concern. That's why the question, if we could delay. If we were to approve, just to meet the timelines, will we be able, as a council, be able to amend if there's a desire to amend the OWP?
The OWP could be amended as needed.
Okay. Does that satisfy some concern? Okay.
If I may.
Yes,
Sure.
Mr. Brown.
Maybe just to add to that, we've been preparing what are called obligation request letters for federal funding to fund what's in the work program. And those have been requested already. So even though there's July 1 is the start date for the new fiscal year, ADOT Financial Management Services is waiting for those letters. So that's another reason why we need to move forward.
Okay. So there's a need to push forward and approve this today, but there is opportunity to continue making sure that our voices are heard in the overall work program, correct? Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? We need a motion.
Move to approve.
proceed.
Second.
Motion in a second. Any further discussion?
And this is for both aspects of.
Correct.
Okay.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. This was the most urgent item that we needed to attend to. And so I'm going to go directly to item 11, which is adjournment, and then just pass on the mic to my colleague, Chair Winfield.
Do we
Mayor
have
Romero.
to point of clarification, do we need to officially say that we're gonna just hold off on all these other items until the next time we agendize a meeting, or do we?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
So we are delaying all of the other items on the PAG meeting. Go ahead, John.
Okay, for the record, we'll call to order the RTA meeting. We have all 9 board members present. Mr. Maxwell continues to join us virtually. Of your agenda, board members, all items with the exception of 8 and 9 will be on a future agenda. And so we'll go to call to audience. Mr. Ludford?
Mr. Chair, there are no speakers at this time.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to item 8 of your agenda. Mr. Rick Ellis.
Good afternoon. It's good to see you and have a couple items that have been included in your packet. The first is the county maintenance of efforts. It's an IGA with the county and is our yearly renewal to provide continued funding to support regional and special needs transit services throughout unincorporated Pima County. The second item is a new IGA with the Regional Public Transportation Authority, which is often known as Valley Metro, which includes updated rate structure to continue providing transit service for Route 685, which runs between the town of Ajo and Phoenix. We have been working closely with staff and are now ready to present this to your approval. Given the nature of the discussion, we are requesting conditional approval of both these IGAs contingent upon attorney review and signature, which would be then secured when the attorney is brought on board.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
it's a
Ellis.
conditional approval, which then would allow basically those activities take place in a more streamlined fashion.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Any questions for Mr. Ellis, board? Motion, please.
Move to approve?
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Murphy, seconded by Mayor John. Mayor Post, excuse me.
It's item 8.
Item 8. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed, nay? The ayes have it, 9-0. We'll go to item 9. Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you.
Item 9 is Preston McLaughlin. This is the award of Sun Shuttle and Sun Shuttle Dial-A-Ride contract.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the RTA board. My name is Preston McLaughlin. I'm the Transportation Mobility Manager with PAG RTA. And I will be speaking today on the recent request for proposals, or RFP, that was released to solicit qualified contractors to operate Sun Shuttle's public transit services. And these services include the Sun Shuttle fixed routes, the general public dial-a-ride, and the ADA dial-a-ride. An RFP was formally released on January 7th, 2025, which included the scope of work detailing the requirements for Sun Shuttle's service operations. The RTA received 2 responses to this RFP, one from the incumbent contractor, We Drive You, formerly National Express, and the second from the national transportation provider, MTM Transit. Following the submittal deadline, an evaluation committee was formed to review and score the submitted proposals. This committee was comprised of 6 transit professionals who represented the city of Tucson, Pima County, the town of Marana, the town of Oro Valley, and the RTA. 3 committee meetings were held between March 6th and April 22nd to discuss the merits of each proposal. Additionally, in-person interviews were conducted for both We Drive You and MTM Transit to get clarity on questions that the selection committee had following their initial review of the proposals. The selection criteria, which was provided in the RFP solicitation packet, considered qualifications, personnel, and technical capability as key indicators of likely success. Pricing was also factored into the calculation. Qualifications of the personnel, the technical proposal, training practices, assurance of federal compliance, and data reporting accounted for 85% of the total score, and pricing represented the remaining 15%. After a thorough review of all relevant materials and extensive deliberation, the evaluation committee unanimously agreed that MTM Transit was the best suited candidate for the new Sun Shuttle contract. MTM Transit received a total score of 523 out of 600. We Drive You received a score of 374 out of 600. I'd like to request that the RTA board approve the motion to authorize the RTA to proceed with negotiating a contract with MTM Transit LLC for a 3-year contract with up to 2 one-year extensions. In an event a contract acceptable to both parties cannot be reached, the RTA is authorized to discontinue negotiations with MTM Transit LLC and begin negotiations with the second-ranked bidder, We Drive You. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the RTA board may have on this agenda item. I'm here to answer questions. We also have two staff members from MTM Transit to answer any questions that are more specific to the agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Questions from board? Seeing none, motion?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have a motion on the table? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. The ayes have it, 9-0. Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
MTM representatives, for being here today to respond to any questions. RTA meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, staff, for all your preparations for today's meetings.
Thank you.